Welcome back, bookworms and word enthusiasts. I'm Alex, and I'm thrilled to be here with my co-host, Ben.
And I'm Ben, ready to unravel more of Katherine Applegate's brilliant writing in The One and Only Ivan. Today, we're taking a deep dive into pages 23 through 36. We're going to pull out those fantastic, worth-learning sentences and vocabulary words and really discuss their meaning and how to use them.
Exactly. It's amazing how much insight these short chapters pack in, and we want to explore that language with you. Let's jump right in with the chapter, The Loneliest Gorilla in the World, on pages 23 and 24.
Then, Alex, that first sentence really sets the tone for this section. Lately, a day might go by without a single visitor. Max says he's worried. He says, I'm not cute anymore.
Oh, Ben, that's such a telling line. It implies that Mac's main concern isn't really for Ivan's happiness or well-being, but purely for the business. It shows that Ivan's value to Mac is transactional. It's about how much money he can bring in. Pretty sad, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then Ivan's own internal thought, after hearing himself called the loneliest gorilla in the world. At times like that, I wish humans could understand me the way I can understand them. It's not so bad, I wanted to tell the little boy. With enough time, you can get used to almost anything.
That's so poignant. It implies Ivan is trying to find a way to cope with his difficult situation, perhaps even convincing himself that his confinement isn't so bad. It shows his deep longing for genuine connection while also revealing a kind of practiced adaptation.
Now for some words from this chapter that are definitely worth learning. First, linger. It's a verb, meaning to stay in a place longer than necessary because of a reluctance to leave.
So you use linger when someone or something stays around for a while, like a smell or even a feeling. The smell of fresh baked cookies lingered in the kitchen.
Next up, clutching. That's a verb, meaning grasp or seize something tightly or eagerly.
You use clutching when someone is holding on to something very firmly, perhaps because they are scared, determined, or very fond of it. For example, the child was clutching his toy car tightly.
And an idiom, hopes up. The English definition is to feel positive about a future event.
We often use get your hopes up to talk about becoming optimistic, sometimes with the implication that there's a risk of disappointment. So don't get your hopes up too high. The results aren't guaranteed.
Let's move to the TV chapter, also on page 24. Ivan has such a clever observation here.
He really does. He says, sometimes I wonder, though, isn't the way they stare at me, sitting in my tiny box, just as strange?
That line is brilliant because it implies Ivan's sharp self-awareness. He's turning the observation back on the humans, making us think about how strange our behavior might seem from his perspective.
And Bob gives us his classic, realistic take. Bob says Westerns are nothing like real life.
Short and to the point, this implies Bob's cynical and grounded outlook. He knows that the clear good guys and bad guys of movies aren't truly like the messy, complicated reality of life.
For vocabulary in this chapter, odd, it's an adjective meaning different from what is usual or expected, strange.
You use odd to describe something a bit strange or unusual. The cat had an odd habit of meowing at the wall.
Next is particularly, an adverb, meaning to a higher degree than is usual or average, especially.
So you use particularly to emphasize that something is more true or noticeable in one specific case. The weather was particularly cold last night.
And finally, fond. It's an adjective meaning having a liking or affection for someone or something.
You use fond to express that you like someone or something very much. She is very fond of her grandmother. All right, let's explore the nature show on page 25. This chapter has such a profound moment for Ivan.
It really does. That first sentence, for a while, when I was young and foolish, I thought I was the last gorilla on Earth.
That implies just how isolated Ivan has felt for so long. He literally believed he was unique and alone in his kind, which highlights his deep longing for genuine connection.
And then the sentence that changes everything for him. All night, I sat wondering about the gorilla I'd glimpsed. Where did he live? Would he ever come to visit? If there was a he somewhere, could there be a she as well? Or was it just the two of us in all the world, trapped in our own separate boxes?
This is truly a pivotal moment. It implies that seeing another gorilla sparks a deep longing and curiosity about his origins and kind. It opens his mind to possibilities beyond his current confined world and begins to break his long-held resignation.
For vocabulary, dwell, it's a verb meaning to think, speak, or write at length about a particular subject, especially one that is a source of unhappiness, anxiety, or resentment. You use dwell when someone focuses on a thought or feeling for a long time, often a negative one. It's not healthy to dwell on past mistakes.
Next, glimpsed. That's a verb, meaning to see or perceive something or someone momentarily or partially.
So you use glimpsed when you caught a quick, incomplete look at something. She glimpsed a shooting star across the night sky.
And upbeat. It's an adjective, meaning cheerful, optimistic.
You use upbeat to describe someone's mood or attitude when they are positive and hopeful. Despite the challenges, her attitude remained upbeat.
Moving on to the chapter about Stella on pages 26 and 27. She truly is a source of wisdom.
She is. Listen to this sentence. Stella says she is sure I will see another real, live gorilla someday, and I believe her because she is even older than I am and has eyes like black stars and knows more than I will ever know.
This implies Stella is a wise, almost mystical figure for Ivan. Her age and experiences give her credibility and make her a source of comfort and guidance, providing Ivan with much-needed hope.
And then a very powerful simile that hints at past cruelty. Elephant hide is thick as bark on an ancient tree, but a claw stick can pierce it like a leaf.
That vivid imagery implies the brutal reality of circus training. It highlights that even strong animals are vulnerable to human cruelty, and it sadly foreshadows future pain for the elephants in the story.
For vocabulary in this chapter, canopies. It's a noun meaning an ornamental cloth covering hung up or held up over something, a tree canopy.
So you use canopies to refer to the highest layer of leaves in a forest, forming a dense cover overhead. The dense jungle canopies blocked out the sunlight.
Next, pierce. That's a verb meaning of a sharp object, go into or through something.
So you use pierce when something sharp pushes through a surface. The needle managed to pierce the thick fabric.
And finally, noble. It's an adjective meaning having or showing fine personal qualities or high moral principles and ideals.
So you use noble to describe someone that is honorable, impressive, or dignified. The knight was known for his noble deeds.
Let's talk about Stella's trunk, found on page 28. Even Stella's physical abilities have a deeper meaning here.
They do. Consider this sentence. Her trunk is remarkable, but still it can't unlatch the door of her tumble-down domain.
That implies the tragic irony of Stella's great power and skill being useless against her confinement. It highlights that even with incredible ability, she is ultimately trapped.
And Stella's own wise observation, old age is a powerful disguise.
This implies that Stella's seemingly calm or less threatening outward appearance makes Mac underestimate her. It suggests her age hides a deeper inner strength, complex memories, or even a quiet defiance.
For vocabulary, precision. It's a noun, meaning the quality, condition, or fact of being exact and accurate.
You use precision to describe exactness or accuracy, often with great skill. The surgeon performed the operation with great precision.
Next, unlatch. That's a verb, meaning to open a gate or door by releasing its latch.
So you use unlatch when you open something by releasing a latch or lock. He quickly unlatched the garden gate.
And shackles. That's a noun, meaning a pair of fetters connected by a chain used to fasten a prisoner's wrists or ankles together.
So you use shackles to refer to literal chains used to restrict movement, or sometimes figuratively to mean something that restricts freedom. The prisoner was led in shackles.
Let's move to a plan on page 29. Things start to get tensed for Mac here.
They do. Mac is clearly stressed, saying, Mac says we are losing money hand over fist. He says he's going to sell the whole lot of us.
That implies the dire financial situation of the mall. It creates a real sense of danger and uncertainty for all the animals, clearly foreshadowing big changes for them.
And then Ivan's incredibly well-intentioned, but perhaps naive idea, maybe if I learn a trick or two, it will help. Tomorrow, I will eat 50 pounds of food, maybe even 55. That should make Mac happy.
This implies Ivan's innocence and his limited understanding of how to solve complex human problems. He truly believes his simple actions can fix things, highlighting his loyalty and protective instinct for his friends, even if his plan is impractical.
For vocabulary in a plan, shrill. It's an adjective meaning of a voice or sound, high-pitched and piercing.
You use shrill to describe a sharp, loud, and often unpleasant sound. A shrill whistle cut through the air, signaling the end of the game.
Next, gifted. That's an adjective meaning having exceptional talent or natural ability.
You use gifted to describe someone who is naturally very talented in a particular area. The gifted musician started playing the piano at a very young age.
And finally, occasional. It's an adjective meaning occurring, appearing, or done infrequently and irregularly.
You use occasional to describe things that happen sometimes, but not regularly. We enjoy an occasional movie night, but we don't watch films every day. Let's talk about the chapter Bob on pages 30 and 31. This is where we learn so much about Ivan and his best friend.
It's a fantastic chapter for character development. First sentence, Bob is a stray, which means he does not have a permanent address. He is so speedy, so wily, that mall workers long ago gave up trying to catch him.
That implies Bob's fierce independence and cunning nature. It tells us he's a survivor, shaped by his life on the streets, and he's not easily caught or controlled.
And then one of the most touching sentences in the book. It had been so long since I'd felt the comfort of another's warmth that I wasn't sure what to do. I didn't move all night for fear of waking Bob.
That implies Ivan's profound loneliness before Bob came along. It reveals his deep longing for connection and how much Bob's presence means to him, even leading Ivan to sacrifice his own comfort for his friend.
For vocabulary in Bob, wily. It's an adjective meaning skilled at gaining an advantage, especially deceitfully.
You use wily to describe someone who is clever and tricky, often to get what they want. The wily magician always had a new trick up his sleeve to surprise his audience.
Next, crevices. That's a noun meaning a narrow opening or fissure, especially in a rock or wall.
You use crevices to describe small, tight cracks or gaps where something might hide or fit. Small insects often hide in the tiny crevices of the wall.
And finally, uncomplicated. It's an adjective meaning simple or straightforward.
You use uncomplicated to describe something that is easy to understand or doesn't have many difficulties. She preferred a simple and uncomplicated life. Let's move to wild on page 32. Bob has some very strong opinions about freedom here.
Here he really does. His famous declaration, "Everywhere is my home. I am a wild beast, my friend, untamed and undaunted."
This is Bob's core philosophy. It implies his fierce independence and self-reliance, showing he values absolute freedom above all else, even comfort or security. It's a sharp contrast to Ivan's own confined existence.
And his pointed comment about pampered animals, he said poodles are parasites.
That strong opinion implies Bob's disdain for animals that are too dependent on humans. It reinforces his belief in self-sufficiency and his raw, wild nature.
For vocabulary in wild, irrational. It's an adjective meaning not logical or reasonable.
You use irrational to describe thoughts, fears, or actions that don't make sense or aren't based on logic. His fear of flying was completely irrational, even though he knew planes are very safe.
Next, untamed. That's an adjective meaning not domesticated or otherwise controlled.
You use untamed to describe something that is wild and not controlled or trained by humans. The wild horse remained untamed, resisting all attempts to be ridden.
And finally, undaunted. That's an adjective meaning not intimidated or discouraged by difficulty, danger, or disappointment.
You use undaunted to describe someone who continues bravely despite challenges or difficulties. Undaunted by the huge challenge, she continued to climb the mountain. Now to Picasso, on page 33. This chapter returns to Ivan's art, but with Mac's practical view.
It does. Mac's command, Mac gives me a fresh crayon, a yellow one, and 10 pieces of paper. Time to earn your keep, Picasso, he mutters.
That implies that for Mac, Ivan's art is simply a tool for business, not a true creative expression. Earn your keep means to justify the cost of maintaining oneself, highlighting a transactional relationship.
And Mac's reaction to Ivan's efforts, I draw a banana. The paper tears, but only a little. I lean back, and Mac picks up the drawing. Another day, another scribble.
That implies Mac's continued lack of appreciation for Ivan's artistic skill. He sees it as mere scribble, valuing quantity for sale over true artistic merit.
For vocabulary in Picasso, mutter. It's a verb meaning to say something in a low or barely audible voice, especially in dissatisfaction or irritation.
You use mutter when someone speaks quietly, often in a way that's hard to hear or understand, perhaps because they're annoyed. He muttered something under his breath about the long wait.
Next, scan. That's a verb meaning to look quickly, but not very thoroughly, through a document or other text to identify relevant information.
You use scan when you look quickly over an area or document to get a general idea or find something specific. She scanned the horizon for any signs of land.
And finally, scribble. That's a noun meaning a quick, untidy drawing or piece of writing.
You use scribble to refer to messy or hasty writing or drawing. The child's artwork was mostly scribbles and bright colors.
Now let's tackle the combined chapters, 3 Visitors and My Visitor's Return, on pages 34 and 35. These chapters show some challenging human interactions.
They certainly do. Ivan observes, the boy spits at my window, the girl throws a handful of pebbles. Sometimes I'm glad the glass is there.
This implies the rudeness and disrespect from some human visitors. Ivan's feeling glad about the glass indicates it provides a necessary protective barrier against such actions.
But his feelings change after the children return. Sometimes I wish the glass were not there.
This implies Ivan's frustration and anger become so intense that he momentarily wishes the protective barrier didn't exist. He's pushed to a point where he desires a different kind of interaction or even escape.
For vocabulary in these chapters, strut. It's a verb meaning to walk with a stiff, erect, and conceited gait.
You use strut to describe walking proudly or confidently, often trying to make an impression. The rooster would strut around the farmyard, showing off his colorful feathers.
Next, dangle. That's a verb meaning to hang loosely with a swinging motion.
You use dangle to describe something hanging freely and swinging. The keys dangled from his hand as he walked towards the door.
And finally, prophetic.
It's an adjective meaning arousing pity, especially through vulnerability or sadness, miserably inadequate.
You use pathetic to describe something that causes pity or is sadly inadequate. His attempt at singing was pathetic. Lastly, the short but powerful chapter, Sorry, on page 36.
Ivan has a moment of reflection here. I'm sorry I called those children slimy chimps.
This implies Ivan's self-awareness and a moral conscience. Despite his anger, he feels bad for his outburst, even towards rude humans, which highlights his gentle nature.
And then a very significant line. My mother would be ashamed of me.
This implies the deep and lasting influence of Ivan's mother on his sense of right and wrong. Her memory continues to guide his moral compass, even though she is not physically present.
For vocabulary in sorry. Ashamed. It's an adjective meaning embarrassed or guilty because of one's actions, characteristics, or associations.
You use ashamed to describe feeling bad or guilty about something you or someone you know has done. She was ashamed of her rude behavior.
Next, conscience. It's a noun meaning an inner feeling or voice acting as a guide to the rightness or wrongness of one's behavior.
You use conscience to talk about your inner sense of morality or what you believe is right. His conscience bothered him after he told a lie.
And finally, reflect. It's a verb meaning to think deeply or carefully about.
You use reflect when you pause and think carefully about a past event, an idea, or your own feelings. He took time to reflect on his achievements.
Wow, Ben, that really covers the richness of pages 23 to 36. There's so much packed into those chapters.
Absolutely, Alex. Understanding these sentences and words truly deepens the connection to Ivan's world and his journey.
Thanks for joining us today, and happy reading.